April 29, 1999. In a luxurious villa called Tamarind Court, located in the bustling Mehrauli area of the capital New Delhi, the atmosphere was filled with laughter, drinks, and lively music. It was a glamorous party night for the rich, where the rich and powerful gathered to relax behind the stage lights. But then, in the middle of it, a gunshot rang out. A young woman collapsed to the floor, blood staining the spot where she had been standing. No one expected that the man who had just pulled out a gun and shot her dead, in front of dozens of people, was the son of a powerful politician. And what was worse, no one dared to come forward as a witness. It was more than just a murder. It was a test of India's entire justice system, and a test of society's conscience. Join us as we enter the case that woke up the nation, the Jessica Lal murder. Jessica Lal is not a celebrity, but she is attractive enough to make people look back. Born in 1965, Jessica Lal is a famous model in the Delhi fashion industry. She not only possesses sharp beauty, bright eyes, and a warm smile, but is also a strong, independent woman who supports herself without depending on anyone. Despite appearing in a few major commercials, modeling was not a steady career. So Jessica took on a part-time job as a bartender at high-end parties, not out of passion, but simply because she needed the money to continue living and pursuing her dream. Jessica lived with her older sister Sabrina Lal, who would later become the central figure in her sister's quest for justice. Siddharth Vashisht, but known in the industry as Manu Sharma, the son of Vinod Sharma, a wealthy and influential politician in Haryana state. Manu's family belongs to the sons of rich and powerful class, with power, money, and deep connections in the government and police. On the outside, Manu is a wealthy young man, well-dressed, frequenting high-class parties, bars, and clubs. But on the inside, he is a hot-tempered, arrogant person, used to no one daring to say no to him. On that fateful night, Manu and his friends entered the bar with the mindset of treating it as their own backyard. When Jessica refused to refill her drink, as per the rules, he felt insulted. And in just a few seconds, the young girl's life was ended with a gunshot. The relationship between the two was simply that of server and customer. But the slightest rejection was enough to trigger the toxic nature of power and arrogance. In the late 1990s, New Delhi was a melting pot of two worlds, one of the awakening middle class and the other of the powerful families, where money and connections could bend the law. In that upper-class world, Manu Sharma and his friends were used to living like kings. They walked in and out of nightclubs like no one else, where their every word was taken as an order. They were not used to hearing no, especially from a salary woman like Jessica. On the night of April 29, 1999, Jessica was invited to be the bartender at a private party at the Tamarind Court mansion, hosted by the famous fashion designer Beena Ramani. It was a private event with many big shots in attendance. Manu Sharma was with a few friends, including the children of several other officials. When he entered the bar, he asked for a drink, but Jessica refused because the bar was closed. It was the policy, and she was just doing her duty. But for Manu, the refusal was a slap in the face to his powerful ego. He walked out, returning a few minutes later with a semi-automatic gun. At this point, no one knew that a series of arrogant choices, from returning, to carrying a gun, to pulling the trigger, was forming in the mind of a man who had never thought about the consequences. There was no preemptive threat, no apology, just a smirk, a pull of the trigger, and a life lost. Near midnight, April 29, 1999, the party at Tamarind Court, Mehrauli was winding down. The music had died down, and the clinking of glasses still echoed through the cacophony of late-night chatter. Jessica Lal, after hours of serving drinks, had closed the bar. She was tired but still polite to each guest, until Manu Sharma approached her with a friend. "A bottle of wine, please." "Sorry, the bar is closed. I can't serve you anymore." That was Jessica's reply, short, formal, and professional. But to Manu, accustomed to obedience, it was an insult. He stepped back, pulling a .22 caliber pistol from his waistband. In a split second, he was pointing the gun straight at Jessica across the bar. No warning, no hesitation. Bang! The crowded room froze. Jessica collapsed. The bullet went through her head, blood spattered against the glass and onto the counter. Screams rang out, wine glasses shattered. People ran, some panicked, some sat down and cried. Manu stood there for a few seconds, cold, without remorse, then calmly turned and walked away along with his accomplices, as if he had just knocked over a glass of water, not killed a person in the middle of a crowd. The shooting happened in front of more than 30 people, but only a few minutes later, when the police arrived, almost everyone had disappeared. Silence fell over the room, and the truth began to bend from the very first moment. Within minutes of the gunshots, the lavish party at Tamarind Court descended into chaos. Some people panicked and fled the scene. Others, those who knew who the killer was, stayed silent. Some hid in back rooms, locked their doors, and trembled. Jessica Lal lay motionless behind the bar, blood staining the tile floor beneath her small body. A woman screamed for help, and the few guests who had finally regained their composure called the police and ambulances. At around 12:15 a.m. on April 30th, 1999, the New Delhi police arrived at the scene. The scene they encountered was one of eerie silence. No more music, no more bright lights, no more laughter, just the body of a young woman, a blood-stained bar, and a few witnesses, all of whom were vague, evasive, or unwilling to answer. Jessica was taken to Ames that night, but doctors pronounced her dead before she arrived. The police immediately collected initial statements, but almost no one dared to name the person who pulled the trigger. Some said, "It's not clear," others didn't see anything, although the truth is that there were more than 30 people present at the time of the murder. Meanwhile, the murderer Manu Sharma and his group of friends had managed to leave the scene in their own car, quickly and without being stopped by anyone. He disappeared in the middle of the night, carrying with him the arrogance and confidence that no one dares to stand up and denounce me. After Jessica Lal's body was brought to the All India Institute of Medical Sciences, AIIMS, forensic doctors concluded, cause of death, shot at close range with a pistol, the bullet penetrated the head causing instant death. Time of death, almost coincident with the time the police received the emergency call, around 12:10 a.m. Weapon, not found at the scene. At Tamarind Court, police found a large bloodstain behind the bar, several small bullet casings left under a liquor cabinet, faint fingerprints on wine glasses and bottles, internal security cameras, but no footage because they were not used during private parties. A party with more than 30 people, none of whom signed on as official witnesses in the initial investigation report. The police knew from the start who the killer was. Many unofficial testimonies pointed to Manu Sharma, the son of an influential Haryana politician. Some even provided anonymous information through newspapers and hotlines. But in the official transcripts, some said, "I didn't see the killer's face clearly." Others said, "I only heard the gunshots. I don't know who fired them." Even Beena Ramani, the host of the party, did not name Manu Sharma in the initial report. The whole case seemed to sink, buried in a web of power, fear, and silence. For months, no formal arrest warrant was issued. The police were heavily criticized. The press began to get involved. NDTV, Indian Express, Times of India published the names of Manu Sharma and his friends. Reporters interviewed witnesses, quoted doctors, medical staff, even Jessica's neighbors. Finally, Manu Sharma was arrested, but not given a long-term detention. With a powerful lawyer and the support of his father, he calmly appeared in court, showing no remorse. When the trial first began in 2001, more than 30 witnesses were initially called, but 32 of them changed their testimony. Most notable were bartender at the bar, "I don't know who shot," guest present at the scene, "I was in the bathroom at the time," host of the party, "I was busy entertaining guests and didn't notice." A young woman's life was buried by deliberate silence. In 2006, after 7 years of investigation and trial, the court declared Manu Sharma innocent. The reason? Lack of evidence. Jessica was murdered in front of a crowd. There were more than 30 witnesses, and no one dared to speak up. The whole of India exploded in anger. The press called it a flout of justice. Hundreds of thousands of people signed an online petition for a reinvestigation. NDTV organized the program Justice for Jessica, which lasted for many weeks. Justice seemed dead, but thanks to the power of civil society, for the first time in history, the case was reopened. On February 21, 2006, the New Delhi Magistrates Court declared Manu Sharma innocent. Immediately, a wave of anger spread across India. People took to the streets. Thousands lit candles in front of India Gate, a memorial to fallen heroes, which has become a symbol of justice betrayed. On TV and newspapers, on social media, there was only one question: how can a murderer in a crowd be acquitted? Leading the charge is Jessica's sister, Sabrina Lal. No crying, no cursing. She simply declares, "I will not let my sister be forgotten as an accident." This is murder. NDTV launches Justice for Jessica campaign. Journalists interview anonymous witnesses. Copies of old statements are made public. New evidence is revealed: call recordings, phone records, car logs, discarded guns. Under enormous pressure, the Delhi High Court orders an immediate reinvestigation. The case was transferred to the Delhi High Court within weeks. The evidence presented: bullet marks matched the gun found at Manu's hideout. Call records and location data showed Manu was at the scene. A new witness, Shayan Munshi, who had initially been evasive, now testified. Friends who had been silent now testified. On the 18th of December 2006, Manu Sharma was convicted of murder under Section 302 of the Indian Penal Code. Sentence: life imprisonment. Two other co-defendants were also sentenced to prison for concealing the crime. As the verdict was read, Sabrina Lal quietly shed tears. No one can give me Jessica back, but at least she can rest in peace now. The entire courtroom was silent. No one cheered, no one applauded. Only justice, after 7 years of waiting, was returned through blood, tears, and faith in society. In 2020, after serving more than 14 years in prison, Manu Sharma was released early for good behavior. The community was once again divided. One side said he paid the price. Another was outraged. 14 years can't redeem a life that was coldly murdered over a glass of wine. However, Sabrina Lal, in an incredibly forgiving way, said she did not object to the decision to release her. "I'm not angry anymore. I just want to move on." That's what Jessica wanted. Jessica Lal did not die from a bullet. She died from a system where money and power once overshadowed the truth. She died from the fearful shaking of heads of dozens of witnesses. She died from the habit of remaining silent in the face of wrongdoing. But she also lives again in every candlelight procession at India Gate, in every newspaper article that dares to speak the truth, in every sister who refuses to surrender to the darkness. The Jessica Lal case is not just a personal tragedy, but a turning point for the whole nation. It proves that justice may be delayed, but it cannot be buried if society does not bow down. Today we tell not just the story of a case, but a lasting lesson about courage, about the value of truth, and about what happens when good people choose to remain silent. Because sometimes just a refusal can take a life, but it is also a word of standing up for justice that can save the entire legal system. Thank you for following this story. If you believe the truth deserves to be shared, please share. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel to continue the journey of revealing other haunting hidden corners.